This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic. And he's on the Dan Barreiro right now.
It is that time once again. In fact, let me move the phone over. It's too far away. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get to the phone so I can say hi to Jonny Athletic here. Computer's in the way. Everything's in the way. Got remotes. There, that's better. That's much, much better. Jonny, can you hear us okay?
I can, loud and clear.
Yeah,
How's it going there, Dan?
It's a beautiful thing. Well, we're trying to get through it. I'm trying to figure out which is the most sensitive fan base in town locally, because my sin so far during the Monday edition of Bumper to Bumper was to savage the Golden Gopher effort against Ohio State. And what I've learned over the years is that when you go down this road, because a lot of people are wired that, I can never, ever criticize my team.
Yeah.
Here's what I got in response. ESPN headline from 11/23/2024. Number 2, Ohio State takes control and runs over number 5, Indiana, 38-15. So the implications are, well, guess what? Your Hoosiers didn't do very good either, which has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Although, if we want to go down that road, I'll still say 38-15 seems a little bit more competitive, even though Indiana wasn't particularly competitive that day, than what the Gophers did against Ohio State. And I will admit, he got to me enough where I said, when the Gophers beat any Big Ten team, especially a ranked one, by 53 points, get back to me. Because that's what Indiana did to Illinois earlier this season. He hasn't responded yet. Why is it that people have such a hard time just calling it for what it was? Ohio State might be a national champion again. I think their defense is historic, quite possibly. But they haven't been running over everybody by that many points. And I thought that was as non-competitive a game for PJ as we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I have been on this show many a times and extolled PJ Fleck's virtues. I think he's done a very good job here, especially with recruiting players who turn into NFL players, which is the sign of a great or a successful program, I should say. But I don't think you can look at that game in any other light than it was disappointing. Of course, Ohio State is the defending national champs, and they're steamrolling toward perhaps the second in a row, and they have just an enormous financial advantage over the Gophers in terms of building a program, paying their players, recruiting, all of those things. Still, I do think that you hope to see a little bit more fight. Certainly, I did not expect them to go into Columbus and pull a Ron Johnson and win the game.
None of us did.
And go out of it. But I do think you do want to see some competitiveness. You want to see some fight. And maybe, as Drake Lindsay grows in this program, maybe he's the guy that will take them there. But I was disappointed with that because it wasn't competitive. It was over from the start. They were running right by him defensively in the passing game. They were just dominating every every facet of the game. And so I don't know how you turn the TV off on Saturday and say, oh yeah, that was okay. Or, how could you not just look at it and say, man, that stunk?
No, that was a steamroll. That was a steamroll.
It stunk.
Yeah, that was a steamroll game. That was not one where there was any. And sadly, I had vowed Friday that if the Gophers found a way to shock the world and beat Ohio State, I would come in to do a 5 a.m. edition of sermons because we had the regular Vikings pregame show scheduled for 6:30. And believe me, when the Gophers drove down the field for that field goal on the opening drive, I had a bunch of people texting me, and I know Brett Blakemore is going, oh, my God, we're going to have to get up at 4 in the morning, right?
I almost texted you when Ohio State took the lead back, like, well, we're safe. We're good.
We ended up being fairly fairly safe as.
What Lindsey was 7 for 7 to start, right?
Yeah. He looked good.
Dicing him up.
Yeah, he looked really good. Yeah. And then the game started, and then the rest is somewhat history. So, in any case, all right, let's get to the Vikings. At some point, I think tweeted, "You can't possibly lose to this, could you?" And I at the time I tweeted it, I honestly thought they might, but then I didn't have enough faith in, I think, two things going. The Browns' ability to do nothing eventually offensively once the Vikings realized we're not even going to try to defend the pass because they're running well and they're afraid to pass at this point, so we're going to stop the run. And Carson Wentz, who on the last drive was flawless. I think you pointed out as well, it was a perfect marriage of execution and play calling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought that when you look at all of the bodies the Vikings were down up front, when you look at kind of the disjointed nature with which the game had been going to that point, especially in the first quarter when Addison is not in there and you're thinking, what the heck is going on over here? For them to be able to circle the wagons and for Kevin O'Connell, I think, to be able to just figure out how do we neutralize some of what Cleveland is doing to us defensively and open things up and get a little creative. And then for Wentz to execute on top of that, I thought it was an incredible finish to the game. Yeah, it was ugly for most of it. They did get a little lucky, I think, with our guy Kevin Stefanski and the way that he managed the clock down the stretch to be able to get that opportunity. But credit to them, and especially to O'Connell and Wentz, for just really coming together at the right moment. It was really well-designed plays, really good strategy to go and attack and get away from the Browns' strengths and just kind of try and, make just enough plays. And then Jefferson and Addison really coming up big in the passing game as well. But I do think that it was another one of those games where you spend 3.5 quarters, you're like, oh boy, this team doesn't look like it's really going anywhere. And then they dig deep and they pulled it out. So I was impressed at that last drive.
Has there ever been in the history of deans of discipline, I'm talking about coaches, any sport, okay, at any level, they're unhappy with one of their players, missed a meeting, late for a plane, lost the playbook, whatever it might be. In the history of those deans of discipline, have they ever punished the player by not allowing him to play in the fourth quarter as opposed to the first quarter? Because I think we found, again, the limits of discipline. When you're talking about a talented guy, you go, we gotta make sure he understands that we're going to hold him accountable, but we'll hold him accountable in the first quarter. When the game's on the line, we're going to have him out there. And, of course, Jordan Addison's saying, well, yeah, see, I made the catch that you needed me to make.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, let's just say hypothetically an Alabama player gets in trouble and when Nick Saban's days, I'm not going to suspend you for the game against Georgia. Yeah. I'm going to suspend you for the game against Tennessee A&M or something like that, or Prairie View and go that way. Real courageous thing that you're doing, stepping out on a line here. But I guess the one advantage to first quarter is everyone knows then that there's something wrong, right? Yeah. If he doesn't play in the fourth quarter, it's he tweaked an ankle or just something happened. But at least in the first quarter, you do put him in the limelight of where's Jordan Addison? What's going on? Why isn't he out there? Sort of a thing. But yes, good thing they didn't suspend him for the fourth quarter because they probably don't win that game because, man, Addison came up with a couple of big catches there down the stretch.
No question about that. So Wentz finishes strong. I think the most underrated aspect of his game is, well, two things that have occurred to me since he's gotten here. One is I do believe he has shown just some pluck by hanging in despite getting battered, right? 2 straight weeks. Now, you could say this week it was his own fault. Maybe a reckless scramble that ends up with him hurting his left shoulder. But he's hung in, and maybe the most underrated part is, and this is going to feel like faint praise, but it isn't according to the way everybody ranks quarterbacks analytically, he didn't throw a pick. And sometimes it is learning, and that's been one of the raps on him, is he has tended to try to do too much, and frankly why he's maybe moved around more than he should, is that he's capable of being pretty reckless. So the McCarthy fans are mad at me. I start him against the Eagles. I don't know if he will, but I think I would. Where do you think we should be at this point now that we're hitting the bye?
Yeah, you kind of hit where I was going with it, Dan, is that he has been in control in these games, under control, I should say, is maybe a better way to put it, because he was reckless earlier on in his career. And I do think that sometimes when you've been out for a while and you come back in and you get an opportunity like this, and there is a lot on the line for Carson Wentz. He very similar to Sam Darnold. He is trying to show that he can still play in this league, whether it's in Minnesota or any elsewhere, going forward in the next couple of years. He needs to show that, hey, I've figured some of these things out. And there can be a desire to say, I'm going to make a big play. I'm going to be on the highlight reels. I'm going to go for the throat, and then you're getting yourself into all sorts of trouble from turnover standpoint. He has not done that. And it's been a very mature, very controlled approach so far. And he's playing behind this offensive line that, there's third stringers, there's fourth stringers, there's a guy who never played center before in his life, and he's starting against one of the best defensive lines in the league. So Carson Wentz had every reason to be jittery, to try and force things, to get it out of his hand quickly, and make some mistakes that way, and he didn't. And so I do think, Dan, going forward, that especially with the schedule coming up, with JJ's ankle, with the offensive line, I don't think they have to be in a hurry to immediately go back to McCarthy if things are going okay right now. I think that opportunity to go back to McCarthy will happen organically if it's meant to happen. And so I would be conservative with JJ right now and say, hey, we've got a little something going here. Let's just keep this going and give you a little bit more time to get fully healthy, and even to look at the game a little bit more. I think that could be helpful for McCarthy.
Johnny, do you have a handle on the Darrisaw pitch count? Because I don't. I'm utterly confused by what we saw yesterday, because I don't think he played in the fourth. I think he had a bunch more snaps last week, and then we were told this week that he was on a snap count, and we ran out of snaps, so he's got to sit. Do you have an understanding? Do the beat guys have an understanding of exactly what's going on here? And did anybody know ahead of time that this was a possibility?
So I will say, while I was watching, and I was not over in London, I was not in Ireland, so I wasn't around the team, day to day to have any real kind of conversations or get a feel for how that was going. But I'll say, when it happened in real time, I was sort of taken aback, because it was mentioned as if it was common knowledge that this was the case, that he was on this pitch count, and there's no big deal. But I don't remember much conversation going into this game about it.
No.
And Dan, I'm just trying to think of myself, how many times I've heard in the past of any player in the NFL on a pitch count. You hear about it in baseball, obviously. You hear about it in basketball. You're on a minutes restriction when you're coming back from injury. I just haven't heard that term applied to NFL players, especially offensive linemen, much before. And so this was kind of all new to me, and it leads me to wonder if there was maybe Darrisaw did come out of the Pittsburgh game a little banged up. Maybe he was struggling, at the end of it and running on fumes or something like that, and they decided that they had to institute this. I'm not sure. I'm speculating a little bit on that because I haven't been around the team, but it took me by surprise. And I just had not seen much discussion around it. And it seems a little unconventional to me, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it definitely did. I feel like there may be more to this story. I don't quite get exactly, because I think through three quarters we had 38 offensive snaps. That just doesn't even seem that many. And he played 76 against the Steelers, right? All 76. So in what world, from a training standpoint, do you go, whatever you've set up, do you go from that many snaps to to going in the wrong direction. I feel like there's something that still needs to be reported on this story or clarified on this story.
I agree with you, and I'll even go back to, when he made his season debut with the against the Bengals. He comes into the game and plays well. But leading up to that, there was a lot of I don't know if confusion is the right word, but intrigue around this whole process of when was he going to get back out there versus when was he not. And I just think it doesn't seem like it's straightforward, I will say. It could be a thing of where maybe the team is on, this timeline, but the player is looking at it a little differently. Maybe there's been a second opinion.
Right.
But everyone does not seem to be totally connected on this yet. And, I thought it was very notable that, one of Kevin O'Connell's most kind of vociferous game balls after the Bengals game was to Darrisaw, and it was really kind of leaning into the sacrifices that he's making to get back out there. Like he's kind of cajoling him to get, we love you, we need you, that kind of stuff. And so then when it kind of takes a turn like this, just really interesting, that it's going that way. And something is not quite right here, or certainly is not as straightforward as it normally is in these sorts of injury situations.
Well, the quote from, I don't know if you read or heard O'Connell after the game, because his comment almost made it sound like he was a bit irked. Darrisaw was part of a plan. We knew at some point, Christian, based upon the high snap count last week, we wanted to be smart with CD. It didn't make it any easier as far as having to navigate the end of the game there without one of the best left tackles in football. So it almost sounded like there was a level of frustration there, but we were kidding about the Addison benching early.
I was just going there, Dan.
Yeah,
yep.
And you're saying, well, if you really are going to be that draconian about the number of snaps, then do you not have to consider sitting him the entire first quarter? I know you don't want to concede anything in a game, but it almost seems like that's the way you should have looked at it or needed to look at it if it was going to be, unless this was at the last minute, he was, the head coach was reminded of something by a trainer. I don't know. The whole thing seems odd.
Yeah, I would have thought that if that was really the plan, that you would mix and match a little bit more. And it doesn't even necessarily be sit the whole first quarter, play the first series or two, then take a break, then come back out, take a break, do that sort of thing just to save some bullets for the fourth quarter when you would think you would really need him. And so it did seem like, was O'Connell surprised by that? I don't know, but you could definitely read between the lines and say that, man, it really would have been nice to have him out there. Especially when the rest of your offensive line is in shambles.
Right. Very true.
The way that it is. So I do think that there is more to that situation, and maybe the bye week will help and things like that. But there doesn't seem to be, something is missing right there that we haven't gotten the full kind of story on just yet.
I'll read you, and I had not read this or I'd missed it. The Seifert tweet. Christian Darrisaw, this is from yesterday, said he left the game today because he was, quote, just listening to my body, end quote. He added, those 75 snaps I took last week was a lot. My body is just getting used to it again. He said he is still reconditioning the knee. So that almost sounds like, I'm wondering then if the coach is kind of sort of passive aggressively trying to cover for the player on a snap count, when it was more like this was Darrisaw coming to them and saying, I don't want to go any longer. I'm listening to my body. I have to sit.
Yeah, that sounds like he was saying whether he was in pain or fatigued or whatever, that he was the one that said, okay, I can't go anymore. And, that's always a sensitive issue in an NFL locker room of like how you go about that. I think most people will respect it. If you say, hey, if you're hurt, you're hurt, come out. But when Darrisaw words it that way, we can at least right now assume that this was more his call than the Vikings call. And if we also look at it as, man, he did play 76 snaps against Pittsburgh, that the team believes that, hey, we're just going to have him out there as much as he can do it. And maybe he is now saying, okay, I have to be more proactive in telling, hey, something's not right yet here, or something's not all the way back, and I'm going to take care of myself. And that might be what's going on here right now.
One more Vikings item, and then I want to talk a little bit briefly about the Wolves. This is from Seth in Brooklyn Park to both of us. Looking back over the last month and a half in our run defense, do you have to think that getting rid of our beef-eating nose guard for a receiver who only plays 3 to 5 snaps a game and has under 50 yards for the season is also now the number 4 receiver? Was it worth it? Now, Adam Thielen's going to join us tomorrow at 3:30, and it's not going to be a comfortable conversation, but I'm going to try at least to ask him now that obviously Addison is back. His snap count, speaking of snap counts yesterday, I think was easily the lowest since he's been back with this team. And there is a pecking order at receiver, which he probably knew about. And I don't know if it's either or. I don't know if one move had anything to do with the other. But it will be interesting to see if there's still a place for Thielen, how he can fit in. And you compare that with the fact that, one of our best run eaters, run to stoppers, is no longer with this team, and the club continues to seem to have difficulty stopping the run.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a few things with the run stopping. That's an issue. Certainly the beef eater being gone, but also Blake Cashman's hurt. And I think he is a big part of their run defense, and just being able to get everyone in the right spots and make plays the way that he does. But I think it is a big concern with Thielen specifically. What I envisioned, Dan, and I think we talked about this when the trade was first made, I wasn't even necessarily worried so much about what happened after Addison got back. I just wanted him to be out there early on and give them a real boost for the first 3 or 4 weeks while Addison was both out and then reacclimating. And I thought that even if that were the case and he did that to a successful degree, that it would be worth it to make that deal. In essence, though, Thielen hasn't done anything. So even when Addison was out, I mean, we're talking, he's had 4 catches for 37 yards this season, and it's just, and he doesn't look like he's open. There's nothing about what he has done so far that says he can still be additive to this roster going forward. Maybe it is a settling in time. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's relearning. Maybe it's learning Carson Wentz and McCarthy and all of that. And there could be some good reasons for it. But I do think it's fair to say that so far I expected more production from Adam Thielen, especially when Addison was out. But now that he's back, I just wonder what's going to happen with that, because he hasn't done anything yet so far. I've
got Mike Conley coming in studio in about a half hour. You've written extensively about him. It sounds like, I'm going to run all this by him as well, but it sounds like he's trying to raise his hand to say, don't forget about me, that there's a level of assertiveness that has been seen from him, and perhaps a level of health that he did not enjoy coming out of that last offseason.
Yeah, it's definitely stuck out to me as one of the early sort of themes of training camp. We've talked, Dan, about how with Conley's age, with Rob Dillingham, all of the factors that would lead us to believe that maybe Mike Conley is going to take an even more reduced role in what's going on the court. But Chris Finch has been very much in Mike Conley's corner, has essentially said, no, Mike Conley's still my starting point guard, which I wondered, would Dante DiVincenzo start this year? How are they going to kind of work Conley's minutes? But the other part about it that has stood out to me is that Mike Conley has always been a very selfless leader. That's what everyone loves about him and respects about him so much. But he has been pretty pointed with a few of his remarks saying, hey, if you want me to be productive at all, and if you want to get what you can out of me, I got to have the ball in my hands. And that does not mean that I'm taking every shot, but that means that I've, for 25 years, have been ball in my hands point guard. I'm running the show. I'm getting people shots. I'm taking advantage of broken defenses when they're loading up on Ant or other people to hurt them. And I didn't get that enough last year. And so this is kind of Mike Conley saying, I'm not just here to collect a paycheck and be the old man and the wise sage. I can still help you. Give me the ball and let me do that. And I think that's what they're going to do, especially early in the season here.
I'll finish up with Saul in Blaine. Man, this might take another 20 minutes, but we're going to have to answer in about 30 seconds. Put me in the camp that says let's roll with Wentz. We let two quarterbacks walk that are tearing it up. Trade McCarthy if you can in the offseason. Turn Brosmer into your Packer protege and let him learn for 2 or 3 years under a veteran. No pressure to start him early being undrafted. This roster is too veteran and is more win now to be messing around with a quarterback that simply might be good down the road but isn't ready. I really don't want to see Ponder 2.0.
Wow. So, he's already seen enough with McCarthy to say, let's
Christian
just go
Ponder
right to
2.0
as the developmental. I don't know about you, Dan, but I felt Guardsy's excitement when Wentz had the shoulder, and he was bouncing off the walls waiting for Max Brosmer to come in. I'm not there yet. I'm not there with Wentz as the future. I'm not there with going to Brosmer yet. I'm still a McCarthy guy. I think we need to let this play out a little bit more. But yeah, I was mostly rooting for our guy Guardsy to be able to see Brosmer because he was giddy as soon as we heard that Wentz had a little bit of a shoulder issue there.
Is LeBron manufacturing a non-story with the announcement, the decision 2.0 tomorrow, or what do we got? What do we think's going on?
I mean, I'd be shocked, Dan, if that's what it is. I mean, I know it's Amazon Prime Day tomorrow, so this all seems to be some sort of orchestrated ad or something like that.
Okay.
I just can't imagine that he's going to sit out there and say, yes, I'm retiring, that this is it. We'll see what kind of commerce that they play this into, but it would shock me if LeBron announces right now or right tomorrow that, yep, I'm done. This will be my last year and go forward from there.
I think I've got it. I think he's going to announce he is raising his hand to become the next commissioner of the WNBA, to bring the players and ownership together. He's going to be the guy who brings these warring factions back together. There it is.
Hey, you're talking about legacy, Dan. That's a legacy right there. So, sure. I mean, it seems like it's irreparable right now between Fee and Engelbert. So, yeah, maybe, and we know Braun and Adam Silver are very close. Maybe Adam has tapped him and said, look, you've done enough on the court. It's time for you to save the WNBA next. And that will be another jewel on your crown. So why not? Let's do it.
Have a wonderful week, Johnny. Thanks as always. We appreciate you.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, John. John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic. That's what we call him. I mentioned Mike Conley in studio in about a half hour. When we come back, well, soon we'll have Ben Leber. We'll get caught up on a couple of other items and then prepare for Nacho Libers.
Minneapolis, it's time to put on your baggy sweatshirt and get ready to laugh. Comedy icon Adam Sandler is bringing his You're My Best Friend tour to Grand Casino Arena October 22nd. Don't miss out on brand new jokes, classic bits, maybe even a song or two. Tickets on sale now. Get all the details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
I am completely confused and need help from the audience on the Mark Sanchez story. Sounds awful, right? The first reports we get the other night is, or I think it was Saturday morning? Whenever it was, the reports were Mark Sanchez attacked in Indianapolis and in serious, one of the reports was critical condition. And then the next story we get is that the former quarterback, now turned Fox analyst, is in the hospital, and there's going to be a warrant for his arrest as soon as he leaves the hospital. And the latest I've read today, let's see if I can find it, is a report involving the individual who was in the altercation, Perry Tolle, T-O-L-E, now described as the 69-year-old victim of the alleged Mark Sanchez assault, and he has sued Sanchez and Fox for injuries from the Saturday incident. This is via TMZ. Sanchez was in Indy to call the Raiders-Colts game. By the way, Danny Dimes, we didn't need him.
If you look at the playoff picture right now, the number 1 seed in the AFC is the Colts.
How about that?
Unbelievable.
He's playing really well. Now, we'll see, obviously, how it holds up. It's October, but he's off to a very good start. I have my updated Vikings quarterback power rankings, and I have to apologize to Kirk Cousins because I forgot about him this week. I had him, I think, as high as 4 or 5 last week, so I'm going to have to make an amendment to there. And the McCarthy fans are a bit bitter because I didn't even have him making the top 10. I had him also receiving votes, and they didn't particularly take kindly to that. So, do we have any understanding about how and why Sanchez would get into any kind of altercation with this individual? The presumption seems to be that he was in some sort of an alcohol rage. But I know, have you read anything else? I'm trying to figure out, how does an altercation like this take place? They were in a restaurant, correct?
Yeah, that's where I'm
outside
at.
a restaurant?
I'm about where you are, where you can imagine it's alcohol probably played some part, but that's pretty much pure speculation on my part.
Somebody is texting, this is a 651 guy, there was a delivery for food or of some sort, altercation between the delivery driver and Sanchez, and then he tried to enter the person's vehicle. A fight ensued. Sanchez ended up getting stabbed by the driver, who was defending himself inside his vehicle. Sanchez, taken to the hospital, was then arrested after charges came through from the man who was assaulted. So it's a frightening story all across the every part of it sounds very, very awful. And I'm sure as time goes on, maybe we'll get a little bit more information as well. Dan Minnesota says, we just ran an ad saying the Vikings play the Eagles this Sunday. I assume we'll correct that. If in fact we did run that. Is that true?
It said next Sunday.
Oh, it did say next Sunday?
Yes, I just
but technically, this Sunday is next Sunday. That's the problem.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? I mean,
I guess.
People, because it's the Sunday coming up. You want to play it again?
Yeah.
Let's hear it. Let's listen.
Vikings Eagles next Sunday at noon on the audio home for Vikings football.
This is the semantical thing. For some people, if they were playing this Sunday, it would be this Sunday.
Yeah.
And if you say next Sunday, you mean a week from this Sunday. So we'll take it under advisement. We're glad, though, as always, we have such intrepid, alert listeners who love to jump on us. And
everybody's a critic.
Everybody's got something, but that's okay because we're great critics, so we have to be prepared for it as well. So we'll keep that under consideration. Early break, little Nacho Leber coming up. And then, as I mentioned, top of the hour, a very good in-studio guest. It's the return of Mike Conley, Timberwolves point guard. Stay tuned.
Your Minnesota Wild face off against the Columbus Blue Jackets this Saturday as they drop the puck in Grand Casino Arena. Don't miss a second of the action. You can score your seats today at wild.com/tickets. That's wild.com/tickets.
Sierra Nevada Brewing Company brings our next guest to you each and every week. Ben Leber, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. What time did you guys get back?
Well, I think that we landed close to 1 a.m.
Okay.
And then by the time we go through, all the custom stuff, get on the bus, go back to TCOPC. And then for those that actually wanted to get their luggage, those were coming, I think, in 2 different waves on 2 different little transport trucks. So I don't know. I got out of there in a decent amount of time. I was probably showered and in bed by 3 a.m. Some people probably got home much later.
A little later than that. What's the most tantalizing item that you smuggled back from Europe that you can talk to us about? Anything in particular that was illegal?
Man, I didn't smuggle like any like really good cheeses or food items. The funny thing was when we got to London, and I say quote unquote London because we were never really in London unless you made a trip down to London. I didn't go to any markets or anything. Like last time I was there, I made sure to hit up some of those big like outdoor markets which are super fun to eat at and just pick up some things and bring home. But I didn't do any of that. So I didn't bring back anything exotic. I actually, I bought like this because I drove out to Bath, England, and I saw the Roman baths and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in the gift shop, they have like this little goblet. And I'm like, man, that goblet's like perfect for drinking coffee out of. Like, who wants?
Nice.
I'm like, I want to drink coffee out of a goblet. So I bought a goblet that I can drink coffee out of. That's about the most exciting thing I bought.
That's a beautiful thing. That's outstanding. I want to get to a Vikings talking point called "Job by the Officials" and then get your assessment of it. Let's play it first. This is the call from the Vikings audio network. You're a part of that, I think.
Bill Reichert walks into the game attempting to tie it from 51. Reichert 8 of 8 on field goals this year, 3 of 3 from 50 plus, and it's 17-14 Cleveland. It's going to be a 51-yard try, right hash. Snap, spot, Reichert, line drive is no good. He missed it right. Snap was a little high. Looked like Wright got it down okay, but Reichert has missed for the first time this year.
Third and goal from the Dallas 7, and the ball was hit by Dante Fowler Jr. The Cowboys went up and hit the Skycam. The ruling, incomplete. The correct ruling, it's a do-over. The officials missed it, the replay assistant missed it, and the Jets could have thrown a red challenge flag. They missed it as well. The Jets would have had third and goal again. And then earlier in the day in London, a 51-yard field goal attempt by the Vikings hits a cable as it's making its way toward the goalpost. The league's position, I'm told, is that they didn't have a clear view of the ball hitting the cable. Some would say, yes, the eye in the sky does not lie.
That last part is Florio reporting on the kick. So what did you see in real time? Did you see it hit anything? Did it hit something? What do you remember?
I remember nothing significant at the time. I didn't see it until I got on the bus after the game, and I actually think that it was Zach Halverson of the Power Trip, obviously, that I think I saw his post, and it was like a slow motion deal, and somebody had zoomed in on it, and you could see it nick the wire and alter the course, and I was like, wait a minute, did that really happen? I watched it several times, and all of a sudden, it's almost like in real time I saw this thing kind of going viral, and so many other outlets picking it up. So I can understand being there why it was missed, because it was just a slight deviation from its course. It's not like the foul ball hit the chalk line and we saw this chalk go up in the air. It was so subtle, and it also didn't like take a hard right turn. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's understandable why it was missed. I know a lot of people on the bus. I heard some people on the bus kind of like moaning and groaning, like, this is BS. Can you imagine if we had lost this game? And, it was something that was missed by the officials, and it should have been a re-kick and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I agree, but I also understand why everybody missed it, because it was so subtle. My biggest complaint about all this, and then, with Florio's clip, that there was another incident with the Skycam, that why are these Skycams in the way of especially something like a kick? Like, I understand where, look, a ball's deflected up in the air, it flies backwards, hits the Skycam, and then goes down to the ground. Like that, the Skycam is behind the play. So it's very bizarre for that to be in play. But why have the Skycam even remotely close to a ball that can be in play on a field goal? Like, it's okay to take the shot from behind. It doesn't have to be on the front side of that play. So I think there's going to have to be some major changes just to how they film that and what the directors are allowed to take. But that was, an understandable miscall, at least from my perspective.
The scoring, the touchdown drive that won the game ultimately for the Vikings, I thought was a perfect combo platter of nice play calling and obviously some very good execution. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought so too. I really thought that there were times in the game that were like, man, we're really dead set on getting JJ his targets. It was almost like, we can throw to other guys. Like, we don't always have to kind of go to the well with Justin Jefferson. And lo and behold, we get into the game-winning drive, and it was Mason, who had a nice run for 9 yards that kind of like opened everything up, gave us a really manageable second and 3rd and 1. And then Hawkinson I thought it was really smart to get Hawkinson open in the middle of the field because they were really protecting sort of the numbers and the boundary given the time on the clock. So why not take advantage of that? And I also think that just, Hawkinson, again, continues to be a very important piece to this offense and just makes plays whenever he needs to makes plays. And then blocking, he's been great at the blocking scheme and all that. And then we did go back to Justin on that amazing back shoulder for like 20-some yards. And then we had to step up and get Addison involved in that 3rd and 3 as well. And so I think the play calling, the types of plays kind of going against what they're presenting defensively, and then again, using a variety of players. I mean, that's the time where you don't have to go back to the well every single time to go to your number one playmaker. You'd really just kind of take what the defense has given you. And then you get down to that red zone situation, and it sounds like they sort of guessed and made an educated guess based on film review what defense they were going to get into, and they called the perfect play.
So, Jefferson talked about Addison after the game, obviously benched early. KOC saying after the game he missed a walkthrough. We know about his history. We also know how good a receiver he can be, as he has reminded us on that last drive especially. So is this a guy that you think is going to be of chronic concern? I mean, is it a guy who's going to figure it out? Is he figuring it out? Or I guess I'm trying to understand how you miss a walkthrough. It doesn't, when you're on the road in Europe, it makes no sense to me. But what should the average Vikings fan level of concern be? Because we know how good he is or how talented he is. But is he going to be one of these guys where there's kind of a constant soap opera?
It's really hard to defend a guy that's constantly finding himself in a little bit of trouble. And look, I don't know him on a personal level. I don't know the strides that he's made off the field to be more mature. It's like, when you don't hear about players getting in trouble, you think that they're all just doing the right thing. But I don't know if he's taken necessary steps. It sounds like he must not. He still made a poor choice, and he got caught, and he missed the walkthrough and got disciplined in the first quarter. It sounds like he's, again, saying the right things to the media, just like he said the right things when he got in trouble back in LA in the off season. And, when he says that he's going to spend the time, catching footballs with McCarthy during the bye week, it's like, well, that's a really mature response. But are you only saying that because of what just happened, in light of what happened? Was that always the plan? Were you always just going to stick around in town and do that and kind of stay focused on the season? Or are you only doing that because you got caught and now you feel like that's the right thing to do? I don't know. I wish I could go to bat for the guy, but I don't know him like that. Yeah. And, if you're a fan, I mean, I approach this as like maybe a parent would. I know that sounds ridiculous to say it like that, but, I'm at the point where, like, as a fan, we'll prove it. Your actions speak louder than your words. So until we get into a situation where we're a year or two down the road and he's showing obvious signs of maturity, then I think that we could all start to trust him. But I don't think there's a reason right now where a fan needs to trust him. He hasn't proven that he can be trusted.
Sierra Nevada Hop Splash player of the game?
I think my Hop Splash player of the game is Dallas Turner, and put a lot of thought into different guys. And I know that I could go through a number of offensive linemen. I think Blake Brandel probably deserves the award as well.
Yeah, good point.
It really is kind of hard to evaluate all of their snaps, but the fact that I don't think that he was ever a problem. He goes out and plays a position that he's never played before in a real game, making the calls. I don't know if there's ever one bad snap. He played phenomenal, but my eyes caught Dallas a little bit more, and it's more so just on his versatility. I know that we're all expecting him, and we all really want this first-round draft pick to just be like this game-changing pass rusher that's just wrecking havoc. And I do think that will come. But he's proven value in other ways. I mean, he's dropping out in coverage with some really nice pass drops, which is hard to do when it's not your natural position. he's put himself in positions to make plays in space. He's doing a much better job and being more consistent, stopping the run, understanding his leverage and his angles as an edge defender. Continues to work on getting off blocks and not being a 1-for-1 blocked guy. And then, he's applying some pressure. Do I think that he needs to get better still at finding the edges on some of these pass rushes? For sure. But I think that he's definitely proving that he deserves to be out there, and he deserves to be out there for all three snaps.
We'll let you out early today. You probably don't want to go to sleep too soon tonight, right? So now is the bit. You got to stay up till 10 or 11 at night so that you get back on the right schedule?
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. I got about 4 hours of sleep last night, and then, I think the idea is just to stay up, and I won't have a problem staying up. I got to go coach some sixth grade football, and then my daughter's got a volleyball game tonight.
There you go.
It'll be, how it is. It's just the kids keep you going, and then by the time I get home tonight, I'm sure I'll just want to crash out at a decent time. So I'll be fine.
Did you see the tweet from Van Ginkel's wife regarding the Love Boat conversation?
I did see that,
It's too classic. We talked about it much earlier. It's very funny. Basically, for those who weren't paying attention or don't know, she's reminded of the anniversary and says, well, people are talking about maybe trying to get on a boat in Lake Minnetonka. And we thought, well, maybe that's not such a good idea during bye week. So very well played, I thought, by Van Ginkel.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And it sounds like if I read it correctly, that there really was like, the thought put out, like, hey, whoever stayed in town for the bye week, let's just rent a boat and go on the lake. Somebody else like, Vikings and boats and all that don't really mix.
I think, the key comments from Samantha. I dropped an article in the group chat with all the details. Safe to say no one's setting sail this week. Very well played. Welcome back to the United States of America. Thanks for the time, and we'll chat next week. Thanks, Ben.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Nacho Leber helping us out. Going a little shorter with him because we're going to get a quick break in, and then we're going to go in studio with Mike Conley, who's going to join us for another year during the Wolves' 2025-26 season. He's going to kind of kick that off by giving us some time between now and probably about 5:30 or so. If you have questions for Mike, Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open at 64686, and we'll get to plenty of Viking stuff yet again after that. Stay tuned.